Langley, bit of space here for him. And now Walker. This could be the moment. And Walker has scored! With 5 minutes...
Some goals build careers. One saved a club. Clive Walker scored that goal. He wasn't the captain. He wasn't the face on the posters. But when Chelsea were one match from oblivion, Walker hit the volley that gave Chelsea a lifeline, the goal that changed everything, even though survival wasn't mathematically sealed until a week later. It wasn't beautiful. It wasn't famous. But it was everything. They were falling. The club was crumbling. The crowd could barely breathe. And then Walker struck. One moment, one swing, one survival. He didn't celebrate like a hero. He didn't chase credit. He just turned, ran back, and disappeared into the tunnel. No banners, no lasting applause, no legacy written down. But ask anyone who was there, they'll tell you. That goal at Bolton didn't just save Chelsea, it saved us. The club, the pride, the belief. Clive Walker is a hero even if no one ever put his face on a flag. He didn't need to shout. He didn't need headlines. He just did what no one else could. Subscribe if you believe the winger who saved Chelsea should never have vanished from memory. He was born on May 26, 1957, in Oxford, England, a city of spires, silence, and muddy pitches left behind by the war. This was England in the 50s. Grey skies, hard streets. Football wasn't fame. It was bruises, cinders, and worn-out boots passed between brothers. Clive Walker didn't wait for a dream. He ran after it. Not tall, not built, but sharp, fast, dangerous before anyone taught him how to slow down. He didn't have connections. He had chaos in his boots. By 1973, Chelsea brought him in. Just 16, unshaped, unknown. But there was something in the way he moved. Not coached, not polished, just pure instinct, the kind defenders couldn't read until it was too late. He trained in quiet, he kept his head down. And every time they gave him space, he turned it into a warning. No headlines followed him. But teammates started watching. Because when Clive Walker got the ball on the wing, he didn't stop to think. He just ran. Chelsea weren't winning when he arrived. They were barely surviving. The late 1970s were brutal. The trophies were gone, the crowds were thinning, and the club had lost its voice. But in the middle of all that, Clive Walker broke through. His league debut came in April 1977 against Burnley. Quiet match, quiet crowd. But something changed when he touched the ball. He didn't hesitate, didn't play safe. He ran straight at defenders like he didn't care who was watching. By December, he wasn't just in the squad, he was the player fans came to see. No tricks, no stunts, just blistering pace, raw control, and a left foot that could break games open in a second. Chelsea was still drowning, but Walker gave them breath. They didn't have stars. They had a street footballer in a blue shirt turning scraps into electricity. He scored goals, created chaos, and gave the Bridge something they hadn't felt in years: hope. Former teammate Colin Pates later said, "He wasn't flash, but you gave him the ball and you knew something was going to happen. Clive could turn a dead game into a storm in seconds." By the time 1978 arrived, Clive Walker had gone from youth name to first-team fire starter. He didn't ask for the spotlight, but he didn't flinch when it found him. By 1981-82, Clive Walker was unstoppable. He wasn't just a spark anymore, he was Chelsea's fire. That season, he led the club in goals, 16 in the league, 17 in total, from the wing, from impossible angles, from nowhere. No striker outscored him, no defender enjoyed chasing him. He wasn't consistent because of form. He was consistent because he refused to fade. He played like he was owed nothing. And that's what made him dangerous. Chelsea was still fighting their way back, still fragile, still uncertain, but Walker made it watchable. And in January 1982, he did it again. FA Cup, Chelsea versus Liverpool, one of the biggest shocks of the decade. Walker scored, Chelsea won, they were a second division side. Liverpool were European champions. But for one night, Clive Walker made the gap disappear. Fans started whispering, "He's too good to stay. He could carry a top club. He might be our way out." But football doesn't care about arcs. It builds a man up just to test his fall. Because while Walker was flying, The game around him was changing. New names, new plans, new players waiting on the edge. And by the time 1983 came, Clive Walker was heading straight for a moment that would define him forever. May 1983. Chelsea were falling. Third division was one match away. The club was broken in the table, in the stands, in the spirit. Everything felt fragile, like a final breath. They travelled to Burnden Park to face Bolton Wanderers, second last game of the season, lose and they drop. Nerves in the tunnel. Silence in the crowd. 0-0. No breakthrough. Minutes slipping. Then came Clive Walker. The ball dropped, left foot loaded, one step, one swing, one volley. It flew pure, rising, unstoppable. Straight into the top corner, 1-0. Chelsea survived, not just the match, the crisis, no celebration, no madness, just a winger walking back like he'd done it 1,000 times. But this wasn't just a goal, it was a turning point in club history. Because if Chelsea had gone down that year into the third division, they might not have come back. That volley didn't just win a match, it bought time, it held the line, it gave Chelsea breath when everything else was collapsing. And the man who saved them? He never asked for praise, he just kept playing. They talk about legends, but some men just deliver and let the moment speak. After the volley, you'd think he'd be untouchable. Chelsea's saviour, the man who kept the club alive. But football doesn't give out grace. It resets, rebuilds, replaces. The 1983-84 season began with hope. Clive Walker started strong, still flying down the wing, still delivering. Then came the injury, a broken jaw, bad timing, wrong moment. He was forced out of the side, and when he returned, Chelsea had moved on. A new face had arrived, young, Scottish, creative, Pat Nevin. Nevin had arrived that summer, but Walker's injury made the transition irreversible. Fans welcomed the flair. The club leaned into the future, and Walker, who had once lit up the wing, was left in the shadow of a rebuild he never asked for. No farewell, no tribute. Just the quiet sense that his time was up. In the summer of 1984, Chelsea sold him to Sunderland. £70,000. No noise, not even a thank you. He didn't argue, he didn't protest, he just packed his bag and walked out of the club he had once carried on his back. They say legends fade, but some aren't allowed to. Some are pushed from memory by the club they saved, while the stadium still echoes with the sound of the goal they gave you to survive. He could have faded from their story, walked off into the blur of time, but Clive Walker wasn't done. He joined Sunderland in 1984, and in a twist of fate, he came back to haunt Chelsea, scoring twice against them in the League Cup semi-final just months later, in early 1985. It nearly caused a riot, but he didn't smile, didn't gloat. He just walked back like always. Job done. After that, the journey stretched. Clubs changed, colours changed. Queen's Park Rangers, Fulham, Brighton. At Fulham, he came alive again over 120 appearances, more than 30 goals, still tearing past fullbacks like the clock didn't apply to him. He wasn't chasing headlines, he was chasing space. And when the professional lights dimmed, he kept going. Woking, Cheltenham, non-league fire, over 200 games in the lower tiers, still running, still scoring, still playing like the wing was his to own. In 1996, Woking gave him what Chelsea never did a testimonial. One last match, one final thank you, as Clive Walker lined up against the club he once saved in silence. No fanfare, no interviews, just matches, just moments. He didn't call attention to himself. He let the pitch remember. The club moved on, but the fans never did. In pubs, in posts, in memory, they still speak his name. Not loud, but with love. On a Chelsea fan forum, one supporter wrote, "You can keep your banners and big names. That volley in '83 was our salvation. Clive gave us everything when the lights were going out." While others built brands, Walker built miles. No decline, no drama, just a footballer doing what he always did. Run, deliver, disappear. He never got the noise, but he never needed it. Clive Walker wasn't built for tribute videos. He was built for 90 minutes and a muddy pitch, for fans who knew the game and remembered the ones who never asked for praise. You won't find his name in the top 10 scorers, but you'll find him in the conversations of those who stood at the shed end when everything felt like it was falling apart. They remember the run, the hair, the chaos, the volley. They remember Bolton. 1983. Not because it won a title, but because it saved everything. And they remember that he never asked for more. No Stamford Bridge farewell, no banner raised. He played, he ran, he delivered, and then he left. Chelsea fans still talk about him, not like a god, like a ghost. The kind that flashes across memory when the club's story is told honestly. Because every club has legends, but few have a man who saved them with a single moment, then slipped into silence like it was part of the job. Clive Walker was never the face of an era, but for those who know, he was the reason there was an era to remember at all. Some players are remembered for silver. Clive Walker is remembered for survival. He didn't lift trophies, he didn't ask for murals. He gave Chelsea something rarer, a future. That volley at Bolton wasn't a goal. It was a lifeline. The scoreboard said 1-0, but every fan knew it meant the club would breathe another season. He never called himself a hero. But deep down, the fans who were there, they still whisper it. He played like a man who knew not every story ends with applause. Sometimes it ends with dignity, with speed, with one perfect strike on a day no one else could deliver. They never crowned him, but they never forgot him either. No headline can erase what he gave, and no silence can hold back the memory. He didn't build a brand. He didn't chase fame. He just ran, scored, and saved a club in one of its darkest hours. Subscribe if you believe the ones who saved everything should never be remembered as nothing. Clive Walker, the winger they forgot to crown, the name the bridge still remembers.